Hi, I'm Gary Jones. I spent 40 years, 10 months, and 21 days in service of our country. Who's counting? Uh, I was most of it was active reserve, and for people who don't know, the reserve is like the National Guard, but the reserve works for the federal government. But they go once a month on a weekend, and they do 2 or 3 weeks in the summer, and but they do the same thing as the active component. But it's a good way to, if you serve, and then people who go in the regular service, say they serve 2 years, 4 years, when they get out, they can join the reserve and still get their 20 years toward retirement. And what people don't realize is that you get that 20 years of retirement in the reserves. When you're 60, all of a sudden you get a check. Might not be a big check, but it just depends. I was enlisted 13 years and became an officer, and then I retired as a lieutenant colonel, so my check's pretty good. Also, at age 60, you have medical for you and your spouse for life. When you're 65 and you start getting Social Security, I'm not Social Security, but when you get Medicare, whatever Medicare doesn't pay, TRICARE pays, and there's no deductible. I just had my shoulder replaced for $66,000, and it cost me nothing. It's a benefit. Now, when you're 20, 30, 40 years old, you don't think about that. But hopefully, one day you're going to be 60, and it's such a blessing, because I've got friends that are in their 70s still working because of the health benefits. So military is great for health benefits. One thing that for young people is that the service, if you go in for 2 years, 4 years, you come out, they pay for your college education. If you decide you don't want to go to college, if you've still qualified, now you could actually pass it on to your spouse or your children, and they can go to college on your GI Bill. Also, you learn a skill. And depending on what you want to do, if you like sleeping in tents and crawling in the mud and shooting guns, jumping out of airplanes, the Army's, good. But if you don't really like that, you like computers and stuff like that, Army has that, but Air Force might be good. The Navy's really good if you like to float around the ship, but their food's good and their facilities are good, but then now we have the Space Force. I don't know a lot about them, but I know there's a lot of Star Wars people out there that like that kind of thing. So now they have that. So there's lots of choices. I didn't mention the Marine Corps, but that's another one of those sleep in a tent, crawl in the mud, and shoot people. But those are all fun things. Kids like to do that, and but it's just a really, really good benefit for people. But one reason I volunteer at AMORM is we have a lot of World War II veterans that have passed on, and they were recognized, with parades and everything when they came home. But our Vietnam veterans, which we have a lot of them passing away, are starting to age out, if you will. When they came home to California, they were spit on and called baby killers, and there was not a lot of positive things, that this country recognized them for. And so now, sometimes the only time we can recognize them and tell them how much we appreciate the service, especially those who are injured, is to honor them in the last stages of life. And that's one thing that AMORM strives to do. We also have a lot of Iraqi veterans and Afghanistan veterans who've lost friends and loved ones and in those countries as we fought. And I was in Iraq in 2009 for a year, and there was a lot of people gave their lives, and now those countries are pretty much back to the way they were before we went in there in a lot of ways. And so I know it's sad for those veterans, but we want to honor them too. And we just had Memorial Day, and I know a lot of people think that's a day to go to the lake and cook hot dogs, and that's okay. But what we mainly need to do is be prayerful and remember those who gave the ultimate sacrifice. Because when you join the service, there is that, you do have that responsibility to serve your country and to protect your loved ones and those of this country. And sometimes it may require us to give our life, but those are actually not that often. But we do want to remember those people, especially the ones we lost in World War II and Vietnam. Vietnam, I think it was 58,000 people we lost, and that's a huge number. But anyway, Amorum thinks highly of our veterans and always wants to give them that honor. So if you know anyone that is sick, terminally ill, or needs to be recognized, contact Amorum, and we'll help by presenting them with a certificate and just honoring them in front of the family. And hopefully sometimes the veteran is not aware that we're doing it, but we're certainly doing it for them and the family to let them know how much they appreciate it.